So, hi everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tech Talks at DevBytes. And nowadays, the world of LLM, software engineering, the face of software engineering is changing continuously. People have been talking about different tools. There is Cursor, there is Devin, there is Replit, there is Lovable. So, the entire ecosystem has changed and we are kind of evolving as things are coming by and in the same direction today we have Shekhar with us, who is CTO and founder at Videocrawl, and apart from that he does a lot of other consulting works. He has had a stellar career in technology and background. So uh, today we are going to be talking with him around software engineering with LLMs. So, Shekhar, thanks a lot for joining us today and welcome to Tech Talks.
Thanks, Ramesh.
So, Shekhar, like in every version and edition of Tech Talks, we start off with a little bit of background of our speaker, and I would love if you can take it up.
Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Shekhar. I've been doing software engineering for last 20 years. So mainly I was into microservices, distributed systems for most of my career. Last couple of years, I started getting deeper into LLMs, and I saw, like everyone, I saw how they are changing the way we build software. So that's one of my interest area is how LLMs are impacting the software development, mainly on the productivity side, how they are enabling you to do multiple things, and how they change your workflow. I also do a lot of AI consulting these days. So previously, I was a CTO at one of the organization called Zebia. So now I do independent consulting. So I'm helping customers build these AI LLM based products. So I'm learning firsthand, building these systems, understanding a lot of different ways how they break, how they work. So that's what I'm doing. Along with that, I'm building a product called Videocrawl, which is a AI companion for improved learning experience from videos. So that is one of the products that I'm building right now.
So that's interesting and impressive. I mean, video crawl, it sounds nice. So, so when we were kind of discussing a bit about it earlier, so from what I understand, you have used a lot of used a lot of help from LLM while creating video crawl.
Yeah. So I think all the front end development that I've been doing in Videocrawl is done by LLM. So I'm primarily a backend guy. So I've been doing Java, Python, and few other programming languages, but I was never a front end guy. I know how the ecosystem works, but primarily still a backend guy. And what experience that I was also using a couple of consultants to build the front end for me. The experience that I had there was it takes a lot of time for people to understand the requirement and get it developed. So there's a long feedback cycle once you tell somebody what to build and the thing comes out. And that's where I started looking into at least doing for the whole front end development. I started doing at least the front end using the Claude Sonnet 3.7. So I use that for building the front end. So right now, if you go to videocrawl.dev, the complete UI is written by Claude, so end to end, the front end of it.
Right. And so if I try to latch on the popular terms, did you
Yeah.
vibe code your front end?
I did, and I think vibe coding is. I think first of all, before even we go there, whether I use vibe coding or how people are doing that, I think we have to define the term vibe coding because it is becoming a catch-all phrase right now for everything people are doing with LLM, at least in the software engineering side. So when we talk about vibe coding, we have to go to the original definition that Andre Karapati came up with. I think he tweeted somewhere. I think on 2nd February, so more like 4 months before, he tweeted about when he talks about. Vibe coding, he's talking about the way of programming where you're not looking at the code. You're just looking at how things looks like, and you are basically leaving it to the LLM how it generates the code. So it's more like a prototyping thing that you do vibe coding for. You're trying to explore a problem. That's where vibe coding comes into picture. So I will say I'm not doing vibe coding for my product, but I do vibe coding when I have to explore a problem. which is different because sometimes initially you want to see how the UI might look like. And I have seen that vibe coding is useful for the UI because UI you still have a HTML page or whatever framework that you're using. You can easily look at it and get a feel of it, whether the code looks or at least the application looks in the way that you expect it to do. So I think that's where I still do vibe coding, but more or less I prefer to use LLM for my improved experience of software engineering.
Right. So, in a certain sense, as vibe coding, the term was getting popularized, people were also putting this thing out with quite a lot of proofs in a certain sense that developers shouldn't be relying on uh, vibe coded things in production, like you were also
True.
mentioning.
Yeah.
Uh, that it is a much better tool for preparing a product definition or
Mhm.
prototyping certain things.
Yeah.
But do you still think it will become a production code kind of a approach? Because that's what somewhat like
Yeah.
lovable and Replit are kind of putting it out there.
I think for smaller applications, it might be true. I think where probably the user base is probably very limited. But anything that has a real user base, has a real use, also becomes complex with time. And I think that's where I think you will start going beyond vibe coding. So vibe coding will be just proving an idea that how something has to look like, and you get probably some initial feedback on it. After that, for me, that's a throwable code. So when I do vibe coding on the front end side, I don't use any frameworks. Basically, HTML, Tailwind as the CSS, and plain JavaScript because I just want to see whether what something looks like. And probably in the production, I might rewrite everything into React. Fine. So for me, it's more like on those lines. It's not never a production ready. It's more about exploring a problem, prototype something over a weekend, or probably looking at how a feature might look like, and then replacing it with proper software engineering, and again using LLM there as well. I again use LLM for production side as well, but there I'm trying to be more in the loop. I'm trying to understand the code base. I'm trying to see the code quality is good. I'm writing test cases for it, or rather using LLM for writing test cases. But that's a different process altogether when you are writing a production code using LLM.
Absolutely. And in a way, this term called product engineer is you are becoming a product engineer in a certain sense for a brief amount of time before you again put your full stack hat back into the picture.
Yeah. So I think the way I am looking at is I think last probably 7 8 years or probably more. I think everybody has been talking about full stack engineer, where you say that a single engineer can do from front end to back end to deployment. And rarely I have seen that happen. I have been doing engineering for 20 years. I think very few, probably good full stack engineer I have met in my life. Because I don't think it's possible. You require a different skill for a front end engineer than you require for a back end engineer, and different people have different intuitions. What I think LLMs are bringing on the table is that as an engineer, now you can code a feature end to end. Because if you have an idea or your product manager has an idea, now somebody who is a back end engineer can do some coding in the front end and build the feature end to end. So now you can become, I will say, a product engineer because you can do things end to end. You can see how your feature will behave in production. You can also try to understand what feedback people are giving. Otherwise, there's always a handoff in the development cycle where somebody will build an API spec, somebody will write the front end for it, and there's still an integration always involved. So I think now we are reaching a point where we can have a true full stack engineer because the tools are able to augment you in that manner.
Exactly. And like LLMs are not only helping you only for front end or back end, they are also into your building pipeline, building
True,
test
true.
cases, and everywhere they are going. However, that I kind of personally believe that the more noise that is coming around LLM based development is
Hmm.
coming from product managers,
Hmm.
because they are kind of, they now have this magical tool where they don't have to depend on developers to create
Hmm.
a prototype. They would
Yeah,
just go in, vibe code, so to speak,
yeah.
and with whatever knowledge they have or whatever acquired knowledge they have around front end, they would fix, make a few tweaks, and it's ready to be handed over to a developer.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think I was also. I think a lot of people are thinking that do you really need design when you can code so fast? Because typically you will create a Figma design, then you will start coding to that. Now, if you can very quickly prototype different interfaces using a real HTML, JavaScript code, why do you really need probably a design phase in? So I think people have been experimenting with multiple things, and I think everybody is still trying to figure it out. And I don't think this is an area where there will be a single way to build things. Everybody will figure out their own patterns. Everybody will figure out their own workflows to build these applications, and it will take time. And I think that's how everybody is going through.
Right. So, so here Bhavya has asked a question like, how do we evaluate performance of an AI coding agent? Um, do we pick it up now or do we pick it up later?
So I think
Let's
there
pick it
are benchmarks. I think there are benchmark like SWE benchmark is there where people are trying to evaluate the AI coding agent. So they are doing that. But I think all benchmarks are broken in some way or the other. I think if you have been following, I think the LLM arena thing, now there is also a paper that has got published on that as well, that probably the rankings you can't rely on totally. So I think you will have to pick your own problems and you will have to define your own benchmark to it, and that's how you will be doing it. Otherwise, look at some leaderboards like SWE benchmark, which basically is doing that. And I think now OpenAI O4 is doing very good in that. Cloud Sonnet does very well. So you will get some indication of how different models are doing, but eventually it's all about you doing it for yourself. And it's also important that they might not be looking at speed as such. So they might only be looking at the correctness of the feature. They might not be looking at the performance aspect of it. And that's where probably you will have to enhance or improve those benchmarks to probably suit to your needs as well. And this is a very evolving area of benchmarking, building the evaluation suite, and probably we can discuss later as well. But I think there are benchmarks you can look at for inspiration and probably to understand where different models lie.
right. So, I mean, in a way, you can go and check out any benchmark, get a
Yeah,
feel for it. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, I believe you have to be agile enough and
hmm,
swiftly switch across different tools and benchmarks and
yeah,
LLMs, because no one LLM is it's the same thing. Like, it's not a one size fit all methodology anyway.
yeah. Agreed.
Sometimes you would find that you need brainstorming a little bit more, and probably some X LLM works better for
Yeah,
you
yeah.
when you're writing code. Y works better,
True, true,
but
true.
if you are using, uh, say one particular kind of tool, and which
Hmm.
is built on only one LLM or something like that, you would
Hmm.
see various responses, and at the end of the day, you have to be more aware rather than the LLM
Yeah,
and depend on it.
yeah. Agreed, agreed. And I think that every LLM has, and I think that's also, they have their own, I will say, uh, capabilities, or I will say their own performance where they do better. Like Claude from Anthropic is good at coding. Now their latest model, which is the thinking model, does a very good job in the coding. It has a very good taste when it is writing JavaScript or front end code or Python code. It is well trained for that. And they also made it, I think, when I was listening to their CEO in one podcast, they also said that this is the most common use case. So we are trying to make sure that our models perform best on that. They don't have a good search solution yet, but if you go to ChatGPT and use the search mode, ChatGPT search is better than Gemini or anything else. So probably if you have something where you want to rely on the latest data, probably you will use ChatGPT. Gemini has a deep research right now, which is freely available, so people can do this. So again, you will have to pick and choose multiple of these things to see where it works better, and that's what I think everybody's still trying to figure out. Nobody knows the limitation. Nobody knows the complete limitations of the capabilities of the system yet.
And exactly, I mean, and then there are agents being built on top of it. There's a bloodbath going out there.
Yeah, yeah,
There are every big companies trying to get you to use their product.
true,
Um,
true.
so, in light of all this, what do you think, in your opinion, are the new expectations of the full stack and product engineers, where LLM is handling, a significant chunk of coding? So
Hmm.
they are essentially saving a lot of time in a certain sense.
True.
So, what do you think, as such, how the expectations are changing?
No, I think expectations are changing. So if you look at, I think there was a tweet from Shopify CEO Toby, as well as I think there was yesterday I was also reading from Duolingo team as well. I think their CEO also posted something on LinkedIn where they are making it very clear that you don't have to hire more engineers till you can prove that the AI can't help you scale. Fine. So I think at least now in the product organization, some tech organization, we are seeing that there is an expectation from the management that people have to become better with these tools. Until and unless they prove that, they will not be able to hire more engineers. So I think on the productivity side, everybody knows that these tools make you productive. Now you have to either learn the different way of working with them or build the workflows around them. It will be there. On the, I think when we are talking about the time save or the total efficiency in building the software, then we probably will have to look at the complete cycle of software development. I still think that testing is not going away. I know people are doing testing with LLMs as well, but if you write code with LLMs and test code with LLMs, then probably I don't know what you will build understanding of. So you still have to do some of these things manual. And I think testing will become more manual, and developers will have to play a very active role in ensuring that whatever code is getting generated, they understand that and they test it manually, which means that they run everything locally, make sure the development environments are ready. Otherwise, I don't think it will help. Probably people will start seeing the diminishing returns. But if you have a good workflow, then I think these things will help you become more productive. But you will still have to look at things holistically, not just the code generation. Code still has to run in production, which means that all the observability aspects still has to be taken into consideration. The performance, like LLMs sometimes generate code which is not performance efficient. Like they might make multiple database calls where there was only one call required, or they might make a bad join and all those things. So you still
Right.
are in the play for a lot of these things. The only point is you don't have to write a lot of these things now yourself. You probably will have to guide a model, review the code that they are generated, and then probably make some fine tuning or make some suggestions and then improve the code.
Right. So, in my case, however, it has become more like that. Now, my expectation is that you should be writing tests and gravitating more towards a TDD driven approach.
Yeah.
Because in the past, if depending upon which organization a person is working in
Mhm,
or a developer is working in, they kind of feel that okay, TDD is good, TDD is bad, or BDD is good or bad, whatever.
mhm, mhm.
But at the end of the day, if you want a reliable software, you would always go around a test.
Yeah,
Whether you are building it before or after depends upon what
yeah,
is your organization or your product demanding. Uh, and I kind of feel that in case of LLMs, it will help you much more if you write your tests
true.
first and fast.
Mhm,
So that will essentially uh, ensure that all the LLM things that you are doing
mhm.
would at least be not be breaking your product.
Yeah, I think test suite will be required, and I think that's where I think people, organizations will have to double down as well, making sure that they have a good automated test suite. But I still feel that manual testing will also be very much required right now because
Definitely,
you only
definitely.
build the
Because
domain knowledge. Yeah, if you basically feel something, you see something running. So I think, and I have worked with multiple organizations where people are not able to run locally on their machines as well. If you can't run something locally, how will you test it? Fine. So I think that's where I think organizations will have to put a lot of effort, that the development environment that they have where they can quickly review things as well, whatever happening. Then the code review process will be very, very important. At the end of the day, somebody has to maintain this code, which means that there has to be a shared understanding, collaborative understanding of the code base. So all of these things are still required. The only code generation part is getting automated to some extent.
exactly. Code generation as well as I would say brainstorming
True.
capabilities.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I agree. Yeah.
So, but see, at the end of the day, feedback loop is improving, brainstorming is improving. How are you really thinking that a team can measure the productivity when
Mhm.
the team has been given, okay, go on, buy Windsurf or
Mhm.
whatever you need to. But then at the end of the day, now the team will also, or as a CTO, you might also have to prove your ROI
Yeah.
that I have bought a costly ecosystem for my team. Is my team actually delivering a faster result?
Mhm. And I think that's where I think it will be important what baseline you have, because you can only see what improvements you have made if you have some sort of a baseline. And I think most organizations struggle there as well. They don't have baseline. I don't think, I know most people are following agile. They have some story points. They also probably have some velocity. So if there is some real numbers that they already have, then probably you can measure few of those things. On the code side, I think we can also look at pull request frequency. One thing that I always look at is time to first commit. So if there is a new developer joining my team, how soon they are able to make the first commit. In one of the products that I was working for, one of the bank, it used to take 60 days for somebody to become product. 60 days.
My
Now,
goodness.
yeah. So it happens. And in an organization where you have 50 people working, you will find
Where
that
you
only
have
of,
too many people,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
You
Now,
have a lot of context that is going around.
true, true, true. And so I think those things will still be required, but I don't think people will have to totally rely on them blindly. You still have to look at it that whether it's delivering, the quality of software is better. So you might be raising a lot of pull requests, but if the bug rate is also going up, then there is no value. Fine. So there has to be
Exactly.
some balance and the countermeasures that you will have to put in. So I think it's just measuring how you measure productivity. I don't think that's changing. You still have to measure some of the key things that you are already measuring.
Right. But I like one important small point you dropped in there, that what is the bug fix rate or bug production rate
Yeah,
in case of moving on to a LLM assisted coding,
yeah.
that much. So, uh, so when we are talking about workflows,
Mhm.
uh, what all different workflows would
Mhm.
you recommend? I know about chat driven, I know about ID native,
Yeah, yeah.
but what other workflows
I
do
think
you
these are
think?
the two main. I think these are the two main workflows that people are using. Some people are adopting IDEs, or I will say these coding editors like Windsurf, GitHub Copilot, or I think which one, Cursor. Uh,
Cursor.
I'm still not using them. I still don't like them for some reason. I still prefer a chat-driven workflow better. The reason for that is when I'm doing a chat-driven workflow, I know there is a tool where I'm trying to do thinking, and there is a tool where I'm doing the coding. So I still like that separation for me. When I have a tool where I can do everything, then things start becoming intermingled, and then probably things start happening too fast for me. I still want to have more control in the way things are getting added. So when you do a chat driven, you first have to explain to a chat. So I use Claude Sonnet subscription 3.7. So I think most of my coding is Claude 3.7 with extended thinking. Uh, so the good part with chat is that you still have to figure out what context you give to the LLM, because that's the key of the quality of code that you will be generating. And if you want to specify the context, you will have to know the code base. Then only you will know which files to pick up. And that's where I still feel there is a human in the loop help. So I know that probably if I'm making this feature, these are the 5 files I have to provide to the LLM. So I'm still in the loop. And the workflow that I have in the chat is that I never generate the code with the start. If I'm making a UI change, I ask it to first generate the wireframe of the change, even if it is a simple button that it has to add, so that I know what it is the model is thinking. Once I have a wireframe, I ask it to generate the code changes. Then again, copy pasting it to my IDE, doing running the linting and all those tools that I have, and then probably running a pull request, CI, and everything. So all the cycle goes in. On the backend side, I always ask it to make sure that it explains the changes that it is going to make before making the changes. Again, and then there we also discuss about database changes, API spec, and all those things. So everybody will have to figure this workflow for them. What works
Right.
for you? If you're just hoping that you will give probably a two-line prompt and just expect it to generate the code, will never happen. Fine. And this is where I
Right.
think most of the people have the disappointment with the LLMs, because first, they are not giving the right context to the LLM. The second, I think their instructions are not detailed enough.
Right. So, I mean, like you mentioned, if you look at, so there is this repository I recently found,
Mhm.
uh, wherein somebody reverse engineered all the prompts for all the major IDEs. And
Mhm.
if you go and look into that repository, you would realize that the depth of those prompts
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah.
And one has to really take into account a lot of different factors when they are creating a prompt for even for simplest test cases. So just writing a single liner for a prompt actually
Yeah.
behind the scene is a pretty large prompt, like every prompt engineer knows.
Yeah.
And it kind of also, at this point, I would like you to take question by Abhishek that,
Mhm.
like, do you think that we are moving towards zero code APIs and microservices? As well as Adit's question, that can prompt engineering replace traditional programming for most tasks?
So I think we are not moving towards zero code. So at the end of we are generating code. So I don't think we are moving towards zero code. And I think somebody will still have to maintain that as well. So I don't think that we are moving towards zero code. The only point is that rather than so ID was just doing the completion of a single line. Now you have moved beyond from single line to probably sometime a single complete microservice if it's smaller enough, or probably a large part of the code. So I don't think we are going there. Maybe in future we might reach there where code will get generated and some other agent will probably maintain that as well, which means that you might move in the direction where you don't have to understand that. But I don't see that happening right now. So for now, we still have to take the complete ownership of the code that we are doing, and we are not going towards zero coding. We are generating code. And the second question was about the prompt. What was the question on the prompt engineering side?
Yeah, basically, that can prompt engineering replace traditional programming for most tasks?
I think it's all about what you're trying to do with the prompt. The prompt is asking a model to do some task for you. It could be the code generation. So I don't think, again, it is replacing, it's kind of augmenting it. So it is helping you define what task you want to perform, and you define that in your prompt, and it might generate a code for that, or it might generate probably directly an answer. So prompt engineering is the way to perform a task. I don't think it is about replacing traditional programming, because if you look at these coding at the end of these, if I use Claude or probably Chat GPT, what I'm prompting them to generate code. Generate code is again going back to is the traditional programming where you write code. So I don't think it is again replacing it, it's making it more efficient.
I agree. I agree. And when we are talking about code, I would kind of resonate a lot with this piece that whenever you're trying to create code, or even if an LLM is going to try and create code, it has to be maintained somewhere,
Yeah,
and things go wrong in production. So who is going to maintain it?
yeah,
Uh, so at the end of the day, I believe the zero code APIs is something which is kind of more like an RPA rather than actual zero code.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
RPA or rule engine, um, or what do you say these days? AI workflows, like things like make.com or N8N.
Mhm.
Um, and
But
at
I
the
think
end of
they
the day,
also allow you to add some code snippet as well. So if you look at these workflows, they will also allow you to, for some steps, you can also add code. So I think code is still there. Sometime it is basically being abstracted from you well enough. Sometime I think in our case, we are talking about generating the code. So code in that way is not going away.
right. Um, so here, Angel Gierterios, I hope I pronounced that name right, has asked an interesting question. Like, what areas of programming do you believe will be most difficult to replace?
I think the human intuition part is still required. I think the good API design, you still have to play an active role. So when I'm building APIs, the specification I still think for myself. The database modeling, I think I still do myself, or at least I take help. But again, I take an active participation in that. So I think those. I think on the performance engineering side as well, if you have to do the performance efficient code, I think you still have to go there and do that. And I think it will also depend a lot on the programming language as well. So some programming languages are better suited for LLMs and some are not. An example that I can give you is like Jane Street, which is one of the financial organization, uses OCaml for all their software development. Now, there is not much OCaml code available in GitHub or any other source code repository that probably language model can learn from. That's where probably you will, if you use those tools, probably off the shelf language models will not give you the code that you probably can help. Either you will have to fine tune like Jane Street did for themselves. They basically fine tune the llama based model, I think, on their code base. That's what you can do. Or otherwise, probably you will have to stick with technologies that work better with language model like Python, JavaScript, and probably Java. these will be the three most popular languages that work great with language models because there is so much code that is available. Now, there is an
Right.
interesting point to it, which means that language model will influence which technologies we will use. If And I think that's where I think assume that you created a new language. If you create a new language and language model does not know that, I know they can do some in context learning, you provide the documentation, but they will never do a good job compared to what they already trained on. So now you will
Correct.
start saying that people will pick more technologies which LLM knows better, again, which will be Python, JavaScript, or Java. So I think that I will say is the limiting factor for it. Uh, on the area side, I think, as I said, on the intuition side, the testing side, I know you can still do a lot of automation here, but I think there's still a big manual automation part that will be required to do that. The design that these LLMs will give will look very similar. They are good for probably CRUD data heavy applications, but if you want to do the design beyond that, I think there again you will need a good designer or at least a design bent of a way to build things. So I think this is, I will say, some of the places where I still think the humans are required. Also, these language models do not have the latest information about things. So they all have a cutoff date, which means that if you're trying to use a newer version of a library or a newer language, they will not have any context to it. That's again, they will struggle. Like all language models still struggle with Rust a lot because
Right.
I think so. Again, there are still a lot of things where these
So
models
in a
struggle.
way, that also starts becoming a lot of involved pieces as soon as we start talking about bringing in the context about what is new. In a
Mhm.
way, you have now started talking about a RAG assisted
Yeah,
coding language with a lot of memory. So it makes things a whole lot more difficult to ensure quality.
yeah.
Um, so in a way, I mean, uh, it kind of brings us to a very interesting question that
Mhm.
what are the some pitfalls
Mhm.
around LLM workflows that you would tend to run into?
Mhm. I think pitfalls is mainly when people only do vibe coding. I think they're not spending time enough to understand the code that is being written. I think that will be the biggest problem that I could see. And I think there was a paper published as well, I think, which was talking about sleeping on the stairwell or something like that, where they were talking about when LLMs give you a very confident answer, you try to rely on them and you stop applying your thinking. And that's where most of the accidents happen. And I think that will happen a lot now because I think a lot of new developers at least will not have the intuition of software engineering because we have done engineering for 20 years, so we do have some intuition about how we have debugged problems, how things can go wrong. My only worry is that if people totally rely on the LLM, they will lose touch with the actual code that has been written, and that happens. That would mean that if things go wrong in production, they will not be able to fix those things quickly. I can give a very quick example where I think LLMs failed for me. So in the product that I'm building, Videocrawl, so what we have is it's basically we have a left panel and the right panel. So left panel has the video and the right panel has summarization, chat, and all those goodies of the AI. Now, what the feature that I wanted to have is we have a feature called note taking. So you can take a note at any point of time if you find something interesting. And that note could be a chat note, it could be a text note. What we wanted to add was a note where we take a screenshot of the video frame and save it.
Right. Right.
Now, when I was thinking about this feature, I basically just googled does JavaScript supports something like a screenshot feature, and the first link on the Google was that it does have now some feature support for that. Now, when I was doing that implementation couple of days after, I just went to Claude Sonnet and asked it to generate code for me. Now, there, Claude Sonnet used an open source library for me and generated that screenshot feature, but it was failing. The reason it was failing is because of the iframe sandbox. Now, because I have done the initial research, I knew there is some probably JavaScript API that modern browsers support right now. So I took the PDF, I basically saved that page as a PDF, gave that to Claude. Then Claude was able to generate the right code for me, which means that human is still in the loop. I still have to do the research where Claude or any other LLM will fail for me. But you can't completely replace yourself. You still have to understand what problem is happening, and there might be a better solution available, which these models might not be aware of.
Exactly. Um, and another thing, interesting thing that happens is, um, which I have personally faced a lot of times, is sometimes LLM will answer you something whenever you'll go for really tricky, in-depth problems. LLM will hallucinate in such a manner that
Mhm.
it will look absolutely correct to you.
Yeah,
For example, we saw on our website, uh, we wrote a small piece of code which was supposed to be an expensive way of injecting scripts on
yeah,
the web page. And at the end of it, we would getting certain errors out in the wild which could not be reproduced in all the development approaches and local machines that we have. uh, and if you will throw the entire piece of code and try to explain the errors, LM will try to reason it in a certain manner that you'd feel that, okay, this might be the issue. And you'd spend a couple of days to collect data and realize that no, that could not be.
yeah,
So, this is another big problem I feel, that if you start relying on it, even when LLM is trying to predict the right approach to it, it would still be wrong.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there would be no way to prove it for yourself unless and until you apply your own thought
And
and
I think
logic.
that's where experience come into picture. And I think that's where I think, for me, I think the senior developers have an advantage here because they at least have spent enough time to probably double check everything. If you have done software engineering, you know things break all the time. At least when you're demoing something, things break. So you always have that thing in mind that things will go wrong. My worry is that with junior engineers who have not built that intuition, it might be that they will rely on something which is very overconfident. And that's where things will start to go wrong. So this is where I think seniors, as well as probably whatever workflow that you are trying to bring, you will have to bring those elements where you double check everything. You try to have a quicker feedback cycle where people verify things. A lot of time I've seen people don't verify things and just probably leave it to a tester to test it. Now, this can't go because you have not written the code, so you don't even understand that well enough. Even if you have not even tested, you don't know whether functionality is correct or not. So I think that's where I think maybe relearning of how we do software engineering will be required, and I think that's where I think focus will be. I think probably in future because these
Right.
models are overconfident. They will never say they don't know things. They will always try to come up with some answer.
Absolutely. And it kind of reminded me the seeming joke of sorts that previously we all used to look down upon Stack Overflow engineers,
Yeah,
basically those who are copy pasting from Stack
yeah,
Overflow. And now I guess Stack Overflow engineers are going to look down upon LLM code engineers who are going to copy everything from
yeah,
LLM.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think you will have
so
to take these tools as something that helps you become better, I will say, and helps you do things faster. But again, you still have to have a process to verify a lot of these things.
exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, it is supposed to be a learning tool, in
Yeah,
my opinion, rather than a solution tool.
yeah, yeah,
And while it helps you generating a better set of solutions, I mean, some of the best explanations to seemingly simple problems, I have always found them on Stack Overflow prior
mhm,
to LLM era.
mhm,
And nowadays, LLMs are actually a better way to find more depth. And
yeah,
in a way, it is changing learning for everyone.
yeah,
And that's another big topic. Everybody is going about that, how to use LLM for education, learning, and all that,
yeah,
which I believe is the best tool nowadays for junior developers to, improve their learning curve in a certain sense.
mhm,
So, so along those lines, I mean, how can teams use, constraints or kind of share knowledge around good prompting habits?
mhm,
Do
mhm.
you have any
Yeah.
thoughts or ideas?
Yeah, I think different tools have different, I will say, ways to manage that. Like if you talk about, I think Cursor or even Cloud Code or even I think OpenAI also have now Codex Cli. So they all allow you to create some sort of a file in your project where you store the rules or these natural language, probably uh, information for the LLMs. So I think that's one way to do that, where you define that if I'm building a REST API in Python class, this is how I want the code to look like. So they all allow you to do that as well. I use Claude Sonnet or Claude Chat API. It has something called project instructions. So I organize everything into projects, and for each project you can define the instructions. And there I'm very detailed, just like these tools. I also define that when doing a front end change, I wanted to first create the SVG wireframe for me. If I give okay, then only move ahead. So again, you define your workflows using the probably some of the features that these tools already provide, and that becomes the shared knowledge, or I will say the shared way of working with these tools. But again, I
Um,
will say the bigger problem here is I think the quality of these tools depend a lot on your retrieval than anything else, because retrieval will decide what you're passing in the prompt. So if a human can provide the right prompt, like in my case, I provide all the files that I have to change in Claw, in probably Sonnet, or sorry, in Windsurf or Cursor, tools do that for you. So that is where I think everybody has to focus on. Answer depends on the context. If the context is not right, answer will be bad, or you will not be able to solve that.
Totally. So at this point, I would take this question from Angel again. Like, do you have any tools that you recommend and for which tasks?
So right now, for me, like I said, coding, I use Anthropic Claude.ai. That's what I use mostly for all my code-driven tasks. Mainly Python and JavaScript I'm doing these days, so I use that. I use ChatGPT mainly for search and image generation. That's where I think for me ChatGPT works great, and I think ChatGPT search is better than Gemini. So a simple example that I can give you on these searches. I think a couple of weeks back, I wanted to go to a bank on a Saturday. In India, couple of weeks in a month, banks are off. So if you go there, you will probably not find anyone. So I searched Google Gemini. Should I go, or I searched Google, and Google provide you an AI overview whether the answer. And Google Gemini said that you can go on a Saturday, which was off. The same question I asked ChatGPT at that, because I always verify these things. I want to be sure if I'm going to the bank on the right day. Now, ChatGPT not only provided that this is the right answer, it was also able to tell me that in my city there is one branch of the bank which is open 24/7, and I was not aware of that. So
Uh,
its search is much better than compared to I will say Gemini or the Google overviews that you see. So I rely on that. And I use Grok as well. I also use Gemini. Gemini I mainly use for deep research feature of it. Again, I use the free version of Gemini for that. Uh, Deep research, I use Grok mainly where I have to do some search. So it has a deep search feature. It basically gives you a lot of links about some documentation. Like today, I was trying to figure out. Like I said, I'm building a lot of these LLM tools, and one of these tasks that I have to do in these LLM application is to do classify some text. I wanted to see how people are doing classification, testing of those classification tasks. So I wanted to go over probably some archive paper and find that. That's where I used the Grok, because the search is much deeper compared to uh, ChatGPT search or Gemini search. So again, multiple tools, but I'm not using any IDE tools right now. I have tried GitHub Copilot. I just don't like that experience. Cursor and stuff I have not, because for some reason that does not appeal to me.
right. And what's your opinion about perplexity, so to speak?
I don't like it.
The entire world is loving it. I don't like it.
I don't like it. Again, I find the answers very shallow, to be honest. I
Exactly.
prefer answers which are much more deeper, and I think Perplexity, at least the free tier. Again, you can't take subscription of all of these tools. All of them are $20, so you can't. So you only have to probably take one or two, and rest probably free. You have to rely on. Maybe the subscription is better. The free tier, whenever I've tried, I've found the answers very shallow. And those things are already available right now in other tools. So I don't see a need for me, at least.
Exactly. So it's essentially, in a way, I feel Perplexity is one of those tools which gives you a lot of right kind of links if you want to read the right resources, so to speak.
Yeah.
It is certainly not a great tool for programming, but it is a great tool for other side tasks where the output of text required is quite small. Like you need a lot less number of tokens to say, for example, things like you can say you need to validate uh, whether your research from other LLMs is right or wrong. So Perplexity can be one of those tools for you.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
earlier it was mainly for me. It was mainly on the search side was useful, but now that all of these tools have search, for me the use case is not there for it because search is now inbuilt. Now the good part is that if you look at ChatGPT, so now search is embedded in the thinking process as well. So search is
right.
not just finding the links and probably aggregating and giving them. It's part of the thinking process of the model. So it's much more powerful now.
Exactly, and it restricts or dynamically decides how many
Yeah,
links to look into.
yeah.
So great, great. So at this point, I'd also ask the question from Tamanna, like, will AI agents evolve from autocomplete tools to full teammates in dev workflow?
And I think that's what people are trying to push, to be honest. If you look at, I don't know how many of you have heard about Devin, and that's the whole point of Devin, the virtual
Devin is
co-worker or virtual.
one. Devin is the one which created the entire
Yeah. But it turned
conversation.
out to be bad. It turned out to be bad.
Right.
So I think there was a complete, I will say, the finding report generated by guys at Answer.ai. They gave it 20 or probably 10 tasks and it failed at all of them. Uh, and Claude or any chat GPT basically did a better job at those tasks. So I think there is probably the full agent mode will be coming in. I still feel there will be specialized. So there will be no generic software agent. Probably there will be specialized agents that probably will get created. Uh, we still have to see because when I tried, I was playing with Codex, which is from OpenAI, something similar to Claude code, which is again the agent where you do all the analysis. The point right now is that the they require you to use the topmost model like the O3 or the O4 model, and it becomes very very costly very soon. So at
Right.
least that's one area, but I think you still have to wait for some time before these models become better to replace a complete human being. But I think that's probably the direction everybody is taking, but it will take some time.
Right, right. Uh, so another interesting question. I mean, I haven't been able to read it completely, but
Mhm.
Mohammed here has asked a pretty longish question. Let me just quickly go through that for you. So, what he's saying here is that while techniques like mixture of experts MOE is allowing creation of powerful LLMs with lesser compute power and size, do you think Indian companies could think of initially investing in creating highly fine-tuned LLMs? Uh, which can be used in their own AI agents and tasks, which will effectively replace developers.
I think there are two parts to it. Should India train their own models, foundation models? The second part is if you have the foundation model, should you fine tune them? I think on the fine tuning side, it's very dependent on the task. People have a mixed experience with fine tuning, and I think if you go to any talk from any of these providers, they will always say don't start with fine tuning, and all of them support fine tuning, but they will still say don't start with fine tuning because fine tuning might impact performance of some of the tasks that you might a language model to do, and it also very costly and it also takes a lot of time on training. So I don't know. So again, it depends on the use case whether fine tuning will work better for you. So for that, you might take a smaller model. You need to have the data set on which you can fine tune. And I think Indian companies will be doing fine tuning because it's just a task that you're trying to achieve in a more efficient and better way. Whether we should build our own model, and I think we should at least for Indic languages and few other things. And I think people are trying as well. I think there are now startups who are trying to do that as well. I think the point is not India should do it. The point is, can we do it better, in my opinion? Because you can train a model. That's not now that recipe. Everybody knows how to train the model. Uh, you should do it better. If we have the resources to do something better, then why not? And probably if we come up with a better architecture than Transformer or probably Mr. Expert or probably using them, why not? But this area is very competitive right now. And to win at this, you really need to have some sort of a special sauce that probably makes this model better than others. And I think that probably we will have to see with time whether that will happen or not.
Right. And in a certain sense, like we touched upon a little bit of fine tuning. Like
Yeah,
fine tuning is also about. There was this recent paper. I don't remember the name of it, but a couple of weeks back, probably like 2 weeks or something. Um, they were talking about that when fine tuning, when you are trying to fine tune, you are essentially putting things sometimes in context and sometimes out of context. So you are changing a lot for the
yeah,
model to process.
yeah,
So you are effectively changing its probability space.
yeah,
And while it is good for tasks which are very easily identifiable, thinking about it in such a manner that you would be able to create the right kind of AI agents for coding is probably a little bit of a stretch
yeah,
in short term, so to speak. And like you rightly said, to be building a next level thing in this, people should think about different architectures rather than thinking about a complex suite of agents,
yeah,
so
yeah.
to speak.
And I think if you look at like Llama 4 just came in, I think a week back, I think
Yeah.
Llama 4 was launched and it has a very bad reception. The people didn't like it, was not performing as per in probably most of the benchmarks. And Llama 4 is mixture of word. Meta has all the resources, but they were still not able to do a better job with whatever knowledge they have gained so far. So it's a difficult space to be in. So I think to build agents, it's less about, I think it's about model because you need to have a model which has good capabilities, but it's more around how you build some sort of a workflow around your use case or the persona that you're trying to automate, what kind of resiliency aspects you can bring into the picture, and then how you are able to evaluate whatever agent that you are doing. And that you will always have to do beyond your foundation model or whatever model that you are building your agent on. And that's where the most of the engineering effort will be.
Right. I totally concur there. So, like we are talking about this, it kind of puts the right question, in my opinion, as like, why does human experience and research intuition really matter with respect to when you're working with LLMs? Why do you think that happens a lot?
Sorry, can you repeat again so I can get that?
Basically, whenever we are saying that LLMs are great for
Mhm,
senior software developers,
mhm, mhm.
and we are saying that it is because of their A, experience, and B, intuition.
Yeah.
So why do you think it is happening a lot with LLMs rather than uh, like, why isn't it that accessible, so to speak, to work
Yeah.
with LLMs
And I
in
think that's because you
software?
have to verify. Somebody has to verify. The point is with LLMs, there's a verification process right now. Now, sometimes verification can get automated, but there is a time where a human is required to do that. And a lot of the problems that people are trying to do, you're trying to automate a human, which means that you need to make sure that whatever answer it is generating, it is aligned with the human preferences or what human will probably create. So that's where I think the experience helps or the domain knowledge helps because human have that, and that's what you can compare it against. And probably once you have, probably you're senior enough, you probably have built that intuition, that experience comes into picture, so you can probably look at it in that manner.
Right. So so now I'll shift the gear a little bit.
Mhm.
I would rather approach how do you see the recruitment space is
Mhm.
evolving in age of LLMs, so to speak, like, because we have a lot of developers on our channel from various stages or in their professional journey. Uh, every fresher
Mhm.
nowadays is by coding a take home assignment. Every mid level developer is concerned whether whether LLMs are replacing me or not, or what should I really be doing? Should I be using it in my assignments or not? I mean, how do you think, and how have you experienced with respect to recruitment?
Yeah. So that, again, as I said, last 6 8 months I've been doing more like independent consulting and building up. So I'm not doing much hiring there. But at a general level, I think it. you can't rely on take home assignments now. I think that probably you should not. Again, if even if you give the take home assignment, I think what you will have to rely on is how confident or how are they able to explain the code that they have written. And I think if they are able to explain the code, and they probably can add a small feature during the sessions that you are doing interview session with them, then I think it should be fine. Personally, I'm not in a favor of not using LLMs, because I see they will be part of our workflow. But what you really have to do is you have to make sure that can they understand what they have written, and the second is can they make small changes during your interview discussion. That could be the way to check their skills. And then rest is all about, once you are asking about system design or other kind of questions, how deep their knowledge is in the problem space that you are discussing with them. So there is still a human involvement required. I think take home assignment is one part, but there's also other interview processes where you will still be having discussion with them and probably discussing with them, and they can still use LLM probably for preparation. That is totally fine. I don't think that's an issue.
So, on a lighter note, do you
Uh,
think is it candidates' life which has become hell in age of LLM, or recruiters' life?
I think both for now, and I think again the two examples that I gave, the Duolingo as well as the Shopify, it looks like hiring is going to take a dip. I know people are not still things are not in open, but at least if you read those two notes, you see that organizations are moving in the direction where they are asking to do more with less. And now I think it will start becoming more and more common once you have few examples. So in that way, job market will be difficult. And which would mean that if you have to probably go for an interview, these tools will help you, because most of the organization will require you to know these tools. Now, how does that change the interview process? Probably, I think everybody will have to figure out. It will still have to be based on whether you can explain what you have done, whether you can make changes during the discussion, or whatever typical interview process that we have. But I think on that side, we will see some dip, I think, in my opinion, in the job market. At least that's what my intuition says. Uh, for the recruiter, I think, yeah, it is difficult because now the interviews have to be much more deeper. Earlier, you could easily filter it out if somebody is not able to do the assignment. Now everybody will be doing the assignment. So what you will do then? So you will have to probably again you will again might have to do a pre-call with them to first understand whether there is a fitment of it. Ask some few questions where probably you just do a virtual call and see that. But yeah, you probably will have to be very selective in the people that you give the assignment to.
Right, right. Totally agree with you over there. I mean, uh, you have to. I mean, it has become that problem that how much depth do you have?
Yeah,
And to be able to get that depth, you need to change your style of learning and you need to change your style of operation. It's no more about delivery, it's also about knowing why behind
yeah,
every problem statement, which has always been the case in my opinion, but it has just now become a lot more pronounced. Earlier, it you like recruitment is always about this, that there are two forces at play. One is how much do you know, and the
yeah,
other is how much the recruiter needs a particular function. Like,
yeah.
if is the requirement immediate, or it works out for them.
Mhm.
So while all of that is true, even in modern contexts with LLMs, unless and until you have that next level depth about why you would do it is a lot more likely thing nowadays that you will become a liability, because
Yeah.
you would end up copy pasting the entire LLM output, and there would be a new set of problems to solve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that will happen. And I think that's where I think learning will happen. People will also mature over time. But I think, yeah, it will take some time before things will become much more clearer to people how to use these tools effectively, understanding the complete limitations of them.
Absolutely. So, in the same breath, what are your thoughts about system architects? Their roles and the challenges they are facing in light of LLMs.
Mhm.
You know, or rather, I would also pose it like this: that can developers become good architects by standing on shoulders of LLM?
So I think it does not, again, my, at least my understanding on this is that it still does not. take away your experience, and experience will still win in the long run. Because at the end of the day, when you are an architect or a staff engineer or probably any other senior engineer, it's all about the decisions that you're making. It could be a technology decision, it could be some other decision, the API decision or other decision. That decision you will still have to take yourself, and you will have to be accountable for them. I think that's where LLM can help you probably make some choices, but again, the choices you still have to make. So I think that's where I don't see developers will quickly become architect just because they have LLM, because it still require an experience. You still require, you have failed at multiple times, you have built multiple systems. So I don't think that LLM can totally bring in. So that what my take here is. Architects can become productive with LLM. That's true, because again, they still have to do a lot of these like C4 diagrams or architecture diagrams or probably the architecture documentation they have to do. So that's where I think they can also use LLMs to do that as well. API specification, they can also validate and verify databases. So I think there are a lot of tasks that LLMs can probably augment architects with, but I don't think it will automatically a junior engineer will become a probably architect using LLMs. You still have to build systems to reach there. Maybe you will reach sooner, but again, you will still have to go through that.
Right, right. So I guess that's a lot of things that I have asked, uh, and we have discussed about today. So before we start wrapping up, like, what advice would you give to aspiring developers
Mhm.
who are starting their journey in tech and in this age of LLM, so like to be precise, because I mean,
Mhm.
that is the reality of now.
Yeah, I think they will have to learn these tools. They will have to understand the limitation of the tool, but again, focusing on their fundamentals as well. So they will have to know what a good software looks like. And again, it takes experience. The point is, it takes time, it takes experience. So I'm not sure whether a totally LLM can help them reach there. But LLMs will, at least, if they ask the right question, LLM probably can guide them in the right direction. It can act as a coach to them. So now they don't have to probably worry that they don't have any senior engineer who can help them. At least now they have something who can guide them as well. So for junior engineers, they can still learn better with LLMs now. So that could be one thing that you can do. And I think LLMs is the future. So I think all the future development is going to be with LLMs. So whether that's complete agent or probably AI assisted, that we will see how it pans out. So knowing these tools is very, very important. But totally depend on these tools without building the understanding is a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely agree there, and it totally resonates with that. So, so all the junior developers out there, keep in mind you need to focus on your fundamentals. Don't miss your CSE undergrad courses or CSE 101, so to speak. Uh, with that thing around, I mean, thanks a lot, Shekhar, for this rich and honest conversation, as well as, from redefining the full stack development and navigating the tricky lines between productivity and security. You have given us, all the developers, a lot to think about. So thanks a lot for this,
Thank
Shekhar.
you.
And with this, for my viewers, like, if you have liked this episode, please follow DevBytes, share it with all your developer friends, and keep embracing LLMs. Thanks a lot, everyone. Like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you.